It's been 3 weeks since Senate Democrats cast the first vote against funding the government. With no sign of a breakthrough on all these health care and Obamacare issues, President Trump is hosting Senate Republicans for lunch in the brand newly renovated, he said, Rose Garden.
And did you know that this next CR would expire a month from today?
Wow.
So here we go. Senate Majority Leader John Thune with his diagnosis of the stalemate.
Of course, the biggest driver of the shutdown is not health care or any other issue. It's the Democrats' far-left base. Left-wing activists demanded a showdown with President Trump, and Democrats fell in line.
Chad, programs on Capitol Hill. Any movement, Chad?
Well, you know, most tours of the Capitol are closed, Dana, because of the shutdown. But let me escort you through the government shutdown tunnels this morning. The White House meeting with Republicans is important, but Democrats say nothing will happen until the president negotiates.
Donald Trump definitively needs to get involved. He needs to get off the sidelines. Donald Trump clearly wants the government shut down. He wants to inflict pain on the American people, and this will not change until Donald Trump gives Republicans permission to sit down with Democrats.
Now, the lunch at the White House with Senate Republicans and the president is not a negotiation. This comes as Republicans dare Democrats to block a bill paying essential federal workers later this week.
Thune decided to bring up these bills this week to pay certain groups and by definition not pay other groups. I was a little surprised. It's kind of risky. It just could get wild and woolly.
Tens of thousands of federal workers are on the job without paychecks. There are concerns about air traffic controllers and TSA. Republicans believe the pay issue will begin to pressure Democrats to drop their resistance.
If they're open for paying all federal workers, then why don't they just reopen the government? What else is really left if they're not fighting to what? They're trying to keep the EPA closed at that point then?
The Senate has now blocked the GOP funding bill 11 times. There's no urgency to end the shutdown because both sides believe they are winning, and that likely remains the case until there's a crisis. Dana?
Okay, Chad, thank you.
In a matter of minutes, we will take you live to the White House Rose Garden Club, where President Trump is set to meet with Republican senators amid the shutdown. How long will the shutdown go on? We are in week 3. Kevin Hassett, though, has said that he believes the shutdown will likely end this week, but there are not public signs of a breakthrough just yet. We hope to get an update from the president. We'll bring you there live when we see him. You know, Brett, we don't see the public indications that Democrats are willing to work with Republicans. I just listened to Chuck Schumer, for instance, but the White House, at least through Kevin Hassett, has broadcast maybe this week.
Yeah, and I think there's just this optimism that they think they can move the needle. There have been a couple of moderate Democrats in the Senate who have shifted votes. Remember, they've taken this vote again and again and again and again, probably 3 times in a week. Now we're on our 3rd week. So, you know, they start adding up, and they're hoping to chip away. All they need is a couple of more, and they can break the filibuster.
Yeah, Laura, it feels like the endless search for the moderate Democrat. You know, you have John Fetterman, you have a few senators who've come on board, but they need 5 senators. If just 5 senators said, hey, yep, I'm going to partner, pass a clean CR, which we did 13 times under the Biden administration.
Yeah, well, you would think you would have more moderate Democrats. Unfortunately, we don't. It's kind of shocking that we now call John Fetterman among the most common sense Democrats out there. When you go back to when he was first running, a lot of people were really nervous about him, but he's making a lot of sense. And I'll tell you what, if they want to play chicken with Donald Trump, I'll remind them that Donald Trump oversaw, as you remember, Kaylee, 35 days of a shutdown back during his first term in office. He wants to make sure the right things happen. He's not willing to cave. The Republicans are not willing to cave. They're going to make sure that the right things happen here. And I think they want to know that the Democrats are going to come to the table to negotiate in good faith. And that's what we should all expect.
Without a doubt. And, you know, Harris, as soon as I get indication that President Trump is speaking, we will take our viewers there. These moments are important. Chuck Schumer indicated, you know, this is a party, I think is what he called it. So Democrats are trying to message this. They're saying, where's Mike Johnson? But as a reminder, the House has no role in this until the Senate passes the CR.
I don't know if there are many people outside of Chuck Schumer who have such an enviable inability to read the room. But he does. And so he can't figure out that this is not fun for millions of people. And it would sound like his lack of being funny makes it sound like he just doesn't care. I would say, though, I see it a little bit differently. I don't think this is Democrats, pushing back against Republicans pushing back. Democrats are pushing against themselves in this whole thing. This is like watching a family fight get out of control. And that's different. They should keep that stuff in their house, solve it in a different way, and leave the American people out of it. Because the Republicans have said that they will sit down, they will talk. But they're not going to renegotiate a deal that the House made and hand it to the Senate so that they could pass a clean CR. You don't get a redo just because your politics tell you that this is a tough moment for you. So I don't agree that the two sides are going against each other. No, the Democrats are in like a navel-gazing frenzy in their own house, but they're taking it outside and they're making it everybody else's problem. Look, I don't know if President Trump can negotiate an end to this deal, but he did the Middle East. He's going to try with Ukraine and Russia. I think maybe he gets involved at this point. What do you think?
Yeah, I think he might. Look, he worked with Hamas and negotiated that deal, so I have no doubt he could take on Senate Democrats. Look, Emily, John Thune has said the House may indeed need to come back and pass a new CR, one that pushes the funding past mid-November. Because as we're looking at this, each day that goes forward, that CR becomes shorter and shorter, the amount of spending it funds.
Well, and again, the application to real-world Americans, they are sick of the hopscotch, of the cobbled quilt. Look, at the risk of being basic, Congress has two functions: fund the government and draft your laws. And they are utterly failing the American people and their constituents. I agree with you that they are destroying themselves, because this will come back tenfold in the midterms and in the next presidential elections. And I hope, to that point, what's going to change? Because we know they've voted 13 times for the same stuff. So what's different now? I hope it's a crisis of conscience. I hope it's them looking their constituents in the eye, and the military members and the government workers in the eye, and saying, I am so sorry I let you down. And it stops today. I'm not holding my breath, but at the same time, we know in this scenario who the villains are and who have abdicated their duty. And it makes me sick to my stomach that they get to enjoy their paychecks, that we pay, and they get to enjoy dinner with their families. And there are right now many Americans who don't have that luxury because of them.
I will say, there is a lot of tape out there where Democrats were calling for a clean continuing resolution, and Republicans were fighting on Obamacare, Ted Cruz saying we have to make changes, and it was exactly opposite. And we have all the tape of the Democrats saying, let's pass this clean continuing resolution and fund the government first. There has been that in the past. They are not there right now. And we are always one fiscal cliff away. We seem to be just, as to Emily's point, piecing it all together. There's a regular order call that they pass bills, they do it through committees. We haven't been there in a long, long time.
No, we haven't. And I think Democrats are sorely miscalculating here. Trump's net approval, as CNN pointed out, has gone up by 1%. And you don't have the same kind of blame for the president you saw during the 2018-2019 shutdown. So maybe they're having a bad case of deja vu. But it's 2025, guys. Polling looks a bit different. All right, as soon as the president comes out to the Rose Garden Club, we will take you to that. His big remarks as we enter week 4 coming up pretty soon of the government shutdown. We'll see how long that lasts. But for now, more Outnumbered.
Hello, everybody. I'm Jesse Waters, along with Kayleigh McEnany, Jessica Tarlov, Dana Perino, and Greg Gutfeld. It's 5 o'clock in New York City, and this is The Five. Open mic at the Rose Garden. President Trump was throwing back Diet Cokes in the Oval, then stepping out to serve up some insults as he hosted a lunch with Republican senators. In the beautifully renovated space, 47 blasting the Democrats for keeping the government shut down and sicking Darth Vader on them.
We have Darth Vader. You know Darth Vader, right? Darth Vader is a man who, I think he's sitting right. Is that Darth? Stand up, please, Darth Vader. Stand up. Does everybody know? They call him Darth Vader. I call him a fine man. But he's cutting Democrat priorities, and they're never going to get him back.
But Darth will be the least of the Democrats' worries, because the base wants to see heads roll. If anyone caves, according to The Hill, Democrat senators are, quote, terrified of getting the guillotine if they vote to end the shutdown. Meanwhile, the No Kings boomers might break a hip after hearing this news. President Trump is winning the shutdown battle, and the numbers prove it.
This shutdown hasn't eaten into Donald Trump's support at all. His net approval rating is actually up a point in terms of his popular support. So the bottom line is this. The first shutdown during Trump's first term, 2018, 2019, was hurting Donald Trump. This one is not hurting him at all. There's no real reason Donald Trump might say, at least when it comes to popular support, I want to get out of this shutdown.
And despite the fawning coverage of the No Kings protests, Crazy Bernie actually thinks the media is on Trump's side.
What they are trying to do, and I touched on this a little bit in my remarks, is to say to ordinary people, hey, look, we got ICE agents breaking down doors. We got U.S. troops in Portland and Chicago. We're powerful. We are really powerful. You got nothing. Who are you? We got Elon Musk. We got all of the billionaires on our side. We own the media. Our people are buying elections. You can't run against us because we have so much money. And by the way, we control it all. You're nothing. Go home. Who the hell do you think you are?
All right, so Jessica, that poll just goes right in your face because you always say how the Democrats are winning the shutdown battle, and it doesn't look like it.
Well, that poll was about Donald Trump's personal approval rating. And when I saw this in our packet, I thought, oh, my God, it's going to be some enormous number. And then it was +1. And there's also, from the same time during the shutdown, the AP poll, which has him at his lowest second-term approval at 37%. So, take it for what you will. Harry Ensign was back on TV this morning with one that I feel like would be in your face. He said, I was shocked to see how Dems have gained on party ID per Gallup. Dems lead by 7 points versus a tie at the start of the year. Looks a lot more like 2018 cycle than 2022. 2018, I liked that very, very much. But the shutdown is about the Democratic Party versus the Republican Party. Greg will taunt me about 2028, but Donald Trump will not be on the ballot. If he is, then the TDS is going to be through the roof. And Republicans are losing the shutdown battle between 10 and 15 percentage points. The American public blames them for it because they are the ones that are in charge. They are in charge of every facet of government, and they have to compromise to get something done. They have to come to the table. And Mike Johnson has been having these calls with his caucus, and members from all over the country are saying to him, we want to at least come back to work. He's keeping the government closed. He's not bringing them back so that they can't even.
This is in the Senate. He doesn't have anything to do with the House, Jessica.
But you need the House to vote on
after
the
Senate goes.
Yeah,
Jessica.
I understand.
You guys in the Senate are not voting to open the government. Isn't that right, Kayla?
Well, we don't
Do I
need
have
to.
that correct?
They're not making a compromise with us. You don't have the numbers, then get 60 senators.
You don't have the issue.
What? We do. Healthcare actually. The voters actually trust us on it. They're wondering where your concepts of a plan are taking them.
If they trusted you would have won the White House.
Not
but you don't have any power in Washington.
Trump is minus 36 on health care.
And you're minus 897 on everything.
Oh, that sounds official.
A few fact checks. Number one, Harry Ensign went on to say fewer than half are blaming Trump for the shutdown. So we did have shutdowns in his polling. Number two, Donald Trump and Barack Obama's net approval ratings on average are about the exact same. At this point in their second term, both hovering around 45%. Joe Biden was 43% worst approval since FDR, going back to Carter. So Trump's doing fine in the polls. Number two, you say we have no health care plan. Mike Lawler has put together a plan with 13 Democrats. He says, let's extend the subsidies for a year and figure out how to bring down health care costs that have skyrocketed since Obamacare.
What does Mike Johnson say about that?
Where's Chuck Schumer? Where is Hakeem Jeffries partnering with them? They're not. What they're doing instead is refusing to pass a CR. 12 times, to Jesse's point, 12 times the Senate has voted down the CR. 13 times, Senate Democrats voted for CRs during Biden's tenure. The only thing that has changed is the president. They won't come to the table on health care. And then finally, the last thing I would say is John Thune said, let's pay the military. Let's pay workers. Democrats said, no, we're going to shoot that down, too. They are maximizing pain to cater to the radical left-wing socialists animating Mamdani and the entirety of your party.
Dana Perino.
Yes. Well, yes.
Well, no, go right ahead.
Well, I said at the very beginning when this started that we know how this ends. And it's just the Democrats are deciding to draw out the pain, right? The suffering is optional, and they are taking the option. Government shutdowns, whoever wants to reopen the government, that's the side that wins. President Trump wants to reopen the government. Therefore, the president is winning by a little, but also the Democrats aren't doing anything to help themselves. When is the last time you saw a Democrat on TV making a compelling case? They change the topic all the time. You know, I'm a podcast enthusiast. I listen to a bunch. Listen to a Democrat today. some great ideas about social media and about the state of the Democratic Party. Never once did they talk about health care or the situation with the shutdown. It's not even on the front page of any of the papers. I checked today with friends who live in Virginia, especially Northern Virginia, where there's that big gubernatorial race. It's not in any of the ads. They're talking about abortion and Jay Jones. So to me, the consultants or the people who are spending money on the issues, they know that it is not working for them. But the closer we get to the cutoff for military families not getting money or air traffic controllers getting that zero on their paycheck, that's when everybody collectively might have a little bit more pain, and the Democrats might find a way to find 10 senators to strategically allow them to do this, because the fever pitch for wanting the shutdown happened last March when Chuck Schumer went ahead and did the vote for the CR. And then all of the progressives started saying, AOC, you have to primary him. We have to get him out. Hence, we are in this position. So how long do they want to draw out the pain in order to play Chuck Schumer's game?
Greg, what are your thoughts on the clean CR?
Thank you. Thank you. Boy, I've been waiting for months to say that. Well, it's a good question, Jesse. You know what I always say? Polls are for nerds and strippers. And I'm fresh out of nerds. I just wrote that down. Look, the politicians' biggest fear is that people realize much of what the government does is not essential. The government was created purely for things that we cannot do. The essentials, like military, not trans, military. But over time, it transformed into a massive, ever-expanding monster that is designed for its own self-preservation. Government was great until it got rich. And then as money flowed in, so did the corruption and the rent-seeking. The non-essential now dwarfs the essential, and it fights to the death for its survival. That's why, like, you have a temporary spending bill that was supposed to be temporary, but, you know, it's easy to invite but impossible to evict when you have bureaucrats. And it's funny to see the same people who are marching against no kings, fighting for a ever-increasing government, especially one that tells you how to behave. I mean, under Biden, we actually had a government that invaded your bedroom, invaded your family's bedrooms, invaded your children's locker rooms. You can't get more unessential and intrusive than that. If you are against no kings or for no kings, I forgot what it was, then you should be happy the government's shut down because they're out of your way. Finally, every time Bernie mentions billionaires, we have to point out the hypocrisy and the weakness of that argument. There are 900 billionaires in the United States. You're going to focus all your energy on 900 people when there are 370 million people in the United States. There's probably out of there 1 million criminals, many of them violent, on the street. People care about illegal immigration. They care about criminals. These are things that you can score. The billionaires, what are you going to do? The only reason why he says billionaires, because he can't say millionaires. He can't say millionaires. He used to, but he can't because he became one. Now that he's a millionaire, now that Liz Warren's a millionaire, Gavin Newsom is a millionaire, you go down the line, you can't actually incriminate yourself. You know, this is the problem with demonizing the rich. Sooner or later, you're going to want to become one. And then what do you do?
All right, well said, Greg. Up next.
Thank you, Jesse.
You're not welcome. President Trump gets threatened after nuking narco-terrorists in the Caribbean.
President Trump putting new pressure on Democrats to end the 3-week-old government shutdown, meeting with Senate Republicans at a lunch in the White House Rose Garden, and calling on Democrats to, quoting here, stop the madness.
Unfortunately, in a craven and pointless act of partisan spite, Chuck Schumer, who I've known for a long time, and the radical left Democrats are holding the entire federal government hostage to appease the extremists in their party. And they are extreme. I mean, I've never seen anything like it.
We have a very simple request. Sit down and negotiate. The American people are aghast. Any observer, objective observer, is aghast that here on this serious problem, they won't even negotiate with us. So the onus is on them to sit down. But that is why we have urged, Hakeem and I have urged Trump to sit down with us and seriously negotiate before he goes away.
And with that, let's bring in a senator who was at the lunch, White House lunch, Louisiana Republican Bill Cassidy, chairman of the Health, Labor, and Pensions Committee. Senator, great to have you on the show. It's interesting there because you have this dynamic where you had John Thune, the Senate Majority Leader, saying, look, there's nothing to negotiate. And Chuck Schumer now saying, all we want them to do is sit down and negotiate with us. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, my thoughts are, it's kind of interesting. It's a catch-22. We actually can't write legislation as long as Congress is out of session. So the Schumer shutdown shuts down the ability to write legislation to reopen government to make health care more affordable again. So Schumer, if you will, has got himself in a trap. I think for the president, it's been easier to negotiate with Hamas than it has been with Chuck Schumer. We need them to end the shutdown. Let's get to work.
You talk about a trap here, Senator. I want to put this on the board because this is the Reuters poll that just came out, and they're talking about, the approval rating. Look at this. You have Republicans. Who do you blame for the government shutdown? Republicans, 50%. Democrats, 43%. So, you think the Republicans, all that I talk to, say, look, we've got a winning hand here. The Democrats are losing this, but that the numbers tell a bit of a different story. What do you make of that?
Well, first, if you ask, should Democrats shut down the government for the Affordable Care Act or for Obamacare, their numbers look far worse. Let me say that. But Republicans are focused on decreasing the cost of health care. Right now, what Democrats want, health care costs have skyrocketed, and they want to paper it over on the Obamacare exchanges with subsidies. If you're a small business, you're still paying through the nose. If you are anybody but on a subsidized exchange, you're paying more. Republicans want to lower healthcare costs for everybody, those in small business, those paying for the small business, as well as those on the exchanges. Democrats have shown no interest in that.
Yeah, we want to remind the audience again that you are a physician, you're a medical doctor. I want to play this soundbite because it comes from MSNBC, Joe Scarborough, talking about kind of the same thing. He believes that Democrats are winning this, and here's why. Watch.
72% of Americans are on Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries' side. They're actually winning this debate. Republicans can have very logical arguments about clean CRs. It just doesn't matter to most Americans. Most Americans feel the pinch of these healthcare costs skyrocketing, and they're blaming Republicans.
Of course, the problem there is he's talking about, 72% are on Chuck Schumer. It's not the case. That had nothing to do with it. He's talking about 72% of Americans would like to see lower health care premiums, and I think that's a fact. But at the same time, if you're giving illegal immigrants health care benefits, you're not going to lower those premiums.
Well, the point being that under the Democratic plan, costs go up. That's the kind of, oh my gosh, bait and switch. If you are a small business paying for premiums, what the Democrats are proposing does nothing for you. It may make your situation worse. Republicans actually want to lower the cost of health care. But by the way, as long as the Schumer shutdown keeps going, we can't work on it because the people who helped write the legislation are furloughed. So if Schumer ends the shutdown, we can actually begin to lower those premiums and to lower the cost for everybody. We want health care costs to decrease, and we want to do for that like we did for energy costs. Bring them all down, important to the American people. In the shutdown, let's get to it.
Interesting because John Thune was not, he was asked a couple of questions. He had some others answer some questions there, but basically it was nothing about the potential of using the nuclear option, which of course would drop the 60 vote threshold down. What do you think of that option?
It goes around and comes around. If Republicans want to end that, Democrats will do it next time. And I feared what Democrats would do tremendously. Just think of all the mischief they could do. Slash the military, make Washington, D.C. a state, giving 2 more Democratic senators, changing voting rights. And so it would be very against the people in the red states. So that what goes around comes around. But if you end the Schumer shutdown, Republicans and Democrats can get to work to actually lower health care costs as opposed to paper them over on the Obamacare exchanges. That's what Democrats want. We want to lower cost.
I got to go, Senator. Thank you for your time. But how did the gathering go with the president today?
It went really well. The president's gracious as always, got my signed Gulf of America hat. And so it was a lot of fun. More importantly, connected with the president about how do we go forward. And that's the most important thing we did.
Senator Bill Cassidy, Louisiana. Senator, thank you, sir. We appreciate your time.
Thank you.
It's a lunch for Senate Republicans while they brainstorm ways to end the government shutdown. This is Outnumbered. I'm Harris Faulkner here with my co-hosts Emily Compagno and Kayleigh McEnany. Also joining us today, Lara Trump, host of My View with Lara Trump, and Bret Baier, anchor and executive editor of Special Report and the author of a brand new book, Theodore Roosevelt Biography to Rescue the American Spirit. It is a fabulous read. Today's lunch comes after the Senate's 11th attempt to pass a continuing resolution which failed last night. Many Republicans say there's not much they can do when the Democrats are refusing to even come to the table because they have their own priorities, which are political.
The biggest driver of the shutdown is not health care or any other issue. It's the Democrats' far-left base. Left-wing activists demanded a showdown with President Trump, and Democrats fell in line.
You can't negotiate with someone that is more concerned about their primary than they are about reopening the government. And we all know that's what this is about.
A new report in Axios echoes what you just heard. The Democrats running for Congress don't think their party's leadership is doing enough to stop President Trump. Here's the headline. Enraged Democrat candidates turn on their own leaders, with one congressional candidate from Illinois saying, quote, Democrat leadership has to take a much stronger stand against the Trump administration, end of quote. Another candidate from Texas added this, I just think that the days of following a playbook are over. There's no way I'm following rules when other people aren't. If they go low, I'm going to the gutter. Well, it's honest. But Republicans say they're not just worried about the economic impact. Here's Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson.
Every day that the government is shut down, it is a danger to the American people. We're in a nuclear arms race with adversaries right now. It can't be any more serious than this.
This is serious, and we are at a point now where we are seeing something with division that maybe we haven't seen in a really long time in this country.
That's true. And, you know, this lunch this afternoon is about thanking Republicans for staying on the same page, about singing from the same sheet of music. There are a few Republicans who are worried about the Obamacare subsidies ending at the end of the year and what that means politically down the road, and they've talked about that. But they're saying the president is ready to negotiate on that point.
Right.
But you have to open the government first. And that's the message, I think, from this afternoon at the luncheon.
So, Kayleigh, the Democrats have come to the table with something outside of the clean continuing resolution. So they've come to the table and they want $1.5 trillion for, yes, subsidies. Part of that would go to illegal aliens and you know, supplying them with health care they'd never probably had in their lifetimes. And then all these other sundry things on that list that last for a few weeks while we get to the next point where negotiations end again and they have to start all over with this process. We are on a hamster wheel. So now there's this idea, well, why don't we just end the filibuster for CRs?
Yeah, Harris, that's definitely being discussed, the nuclear option there. We'll see if that comes to fruition. You do have people like Congressman Mike Lawler who have put forward legislation saying, let's come to something here. Let's fix subsidies. Let's open the government. You have these voices in the Republican Party that are constructive. But the problem is they're rubbing up against the Democrat voices, many of which you just read. I mean, that quote, if they go low, I'm going to the gutter. I guess gone are the days of Michelle Obama where they go high. I'm not sure if those days were ever truly here, but at least they were in word rather than action. But I'm struck by what some of these Democrats have told the Hill. There was a Democratic senator. People are going to get hammered if we make a deal with Republicans. So they're going to get hammered by their base. They're admitting that. Another person familiar with Democrat in the Senate, their caucus thinking, said, we would have enough votes if people were not terrified of being sent to the guillotine. These people are so petrified of the same progressive left-wing flank that is animating the candidacy of Zoran Mamdani that they have to shut down the government and can't even get military families paid. It is a really striking place for the party.
So, Lara, are they right, though, on the left side of the aisle that this is kind of where they have to go into the gutter if necessary because there's such a fracture within their own party?
Well, that's certainly where they've ended up. They're pretty much in the gutter at this point. They don't have a leader. They don't really have a message or any sort of platform that they're offering to the American people. And I think that's what got them to this place, because when you have a president like Donald Trump who seems every single day to be winning, it's a very different time than it was during the first term. Kayleigh, you remember this. There was a lot of defense from the administration and from the president during the first term. He is on full offense. He's not tripped up by the mainstream media. He's not tripped up by the tricks and the sleight of hand from the Democrats anymore. He is in charge. He's delivering for the American people. And it must be hard to see him doing all these great things, like securing our border, like bringing down inflation and gas prices, like bringing peace around the world. So the Democrats have resorted to this as basically their only outlet. What else are they going to do?
You know, Emily, I'm not hearing, and correct me if I'm wrong, maybe I missed like 5 seconds of TV in the last 2 weeks, but I'm not hearing Democrats say, we do care about those military members. We do care about the air traffic controllers who are going to keep working to keep the rest of us safe when we travel, even without paychecks. I'm hearing crickets.
I'm so grateful you brought that up. This weekend, I spent a lot of time with family and friends in Virginia and D.C., many of whom are double-income military government families. Ooh. And so the reply, when we talk about them not getting their paychecks, first of all, the paycheck they've received since it was the second half of the pay period, it was already diminished. And secondly, the point is it comes later. And when these families are trying to make their credit card payments, when their rent payments are automatic deposit withdrawal, that matters. And so the solve of, well, they'll get paid eventually doesn't do any good. And for many of them, they're continuing to go to work every day. They're putting their lives on the line and their service on the line for this country. And they have nothing from those Democrats in the way of acknowledgement or gratitude or any type of solution-oriented action that will show them that they actually do appreciate what they're doing. And I am fearful for those families. And a lot of them are struggling right now with their mentality and with their attitude to stay positive. And quick final point on that interesting candidate in the Democracy Party. I interviewed a few of the Hoboken, New Jersey candidates, among them Dr. Michael Russo. He's running for mayor, and his council members, his team. And they talked about the detriment that the party's leadership there in that state in particular has when they are kowtowing to the liberal left. And they're saying there's two consequences that they're not paying attention to. Number one, the concept that the federal government will withdraw funds, that President Trump, it will draw his ire, rightly
That's
so.
right.
He will refuse to fund us, rightly so. And secondly, that our constituents don't want that. All of their policies are economic based for their city and for their state. And yet they say that the rest of the leadership, or those that are on their way out, that it's all virtue signaling, and so it's leaving them to have to contend with the rubble.
You know, that is so critical, those 2 points. And I would add in just a quick third. What's going on in the Democrat Party, we've learned this week as well, and it's only Tuesday, is age-related, too. Like that there's a push of the old guard by the younger candidates coming in, and we're starting to see that.
I think so. And definitely there is this sense that the left part of the party is dominating and sucking up a lot of oxygen. Just to go back, the health care costs are a big deal and will be a big deal. And Republicans are saying, we hear you, but let's fund the government now and talk about that before the end of the year.
So why won't Democrats do that? I mean, I don't believe that they honestly think that every Republican wouldn't make good on a promise. They're going to call hundreds of other people liars. I don't believe that. And in the Senate, I don't believe that they call the other 50 guys liars, House or Senate. So what's their play here? Why not say, yeah, okay, we'll sign the CR, and the very next hour we're gonna hash this out over health care?
I think they don't believe that it's going to happen, and that's, you know, it's where we are in politics.
So they think Republicans are lying?
That's where we are in politics.
Wow.
But just big picture, the reason we're here is because Obamacare, the marketplace, was supposed to drive costs down.
Right.
It never did, and that's why the subsidies were added to kind of shore everything up. Now they're coming to an end, and nobody wants to see anything come to an end.
Wow. You were.
Yeah, that's absolutely the case. And you also, I would just add politically, you have Schumer, who has a bad nightmare in his mind, the deja vu from the March time when he made a deal with Republicans, got tremendous backlash, and he's staring down a potential primary from AOC, where she has touted polls that show her up by double digits. So,
look, we are waiting right now, and you see me looking off to the corner of my eye because we're in bars right now, but we know that there is in the Rose Garden coming up going to be this meeting between the president and senators, Republican senators. We've got a little bit of that shot up now. And as soon as we see the president come out, we're going to go to this live. So I've been told, and I want to ask our team in the control room now, how close are we? Are we inside of a 2-minute warning for any of this? They're going to talk. Okay. Okay, we're within the 2. So as we look at this, Laura, oh, you see Senator Lindsey Graham there. I mean, everybody is coming to the table to say, as Brett put so eloquently, they're going to stick together on this.
And I think that's such a beautiful thing to see from the Republican Party. This is a completely different party than it was the day Donald Trump came down the golden escalator in Trump Tower. He has united this party. He has given this party backbone. We know how to fight now, and we know how to win now as a party. And I think it is an incredible thing to see. I also love seeing those beautiful umbrellas there that remind me of the Mar-a-Lago Club and Trump Bedminster. Those are always the best to see. He's really done a great job with that Rose Garden out there as well.
Emily.
Yeah, you know, we've talked about how, I feel that this president, for once, has sort of taken up the space of the executive authority. And rather than being tepid and timid in the way of executing the mandate of the American people and the will, he's actually showing us what that authority looks like. And it includes, I think, investing in the structure of the White House, which is the people's house. And it's notable. Obviously, no taxpayer funds are covering that, but I think it's exciting for us to see that, you know, you're supposed to leave something better than when you found it, and the stewardship, what that means. And I think we're seeing that honor on a daily basis.
I want to tell the audience what they're seeing. So we have a couple of different angles from the activity in the Rose Garden right now, and we'll show you as much as we can. And so you may see us switching. We did this last hour, too, all the way to Israel with Vice President Vance. We'll be switching between the cameras that we can get a live shot via satellite on, kind of taking you behind the scenes here, but it's worth telling you because as we get those pictures, we're just going to pop them up. Brad.
Yeah, and listen, this Rose Garden Club is something that the president really wanted to do, and he has the music. He plays the music when he has dinner out there. He's the DJ with the with the iPad. He's got the whole thing, and it's an eclectic mix, as you can
It's all over the board.
Yeah.
Let me tell you,
little Elvis,
Elvis, REM, Phantom of the Opera, Cats. He's been known to go all over the place with it. He is a big Elvis fan, and my favorite, we talked about it on my show last weekend, is whenever you see the superimposed picture of Donald Trump over Elvis's face. He goes back and forth. I think he likens himself to Elvis.
Yeah.
But I think that like the senators who are there, I think, are saying we are standing united. I know there's a little trepidation, though, because when you get to day 21, it's starting to hit. You know, there are checks that are being missed.
Right.
And while they think that they have the political upper hand, it's still, you know, people are hurting. And so I think that there's an effort to get to a solution sometime.
By the way, the word on the street, and we talked about this all weekend, and it's continued through here in the military, in the government, is that it's going to go through the first week of December. That is what everyone in the who are not receiving their paychecks, that's what they are expecting.
And that's why it's so critical, too, Kaylee, that the president has talked about funding for those military members. I would imagine they'll get to the air traffic controllers if they can. I mean, you saw through DOJ, there were some things that were cut. I don't know if they're big enough to cover this sort of a thing, if it's a protracted shutdown. But you're starting to see some, and I love the way, Brett, you were talking about it. Look, the Republicans see the need to talk about some of these issues, just now isn't the time.
Yeah, I do think, you know, one Trump official said it could end this week. I've heard predictions, to Emily's point, it could go on much longer. We'll see. We know the pain increases every day. I do want to underscore the point that Laura made, because I think it's a really important one. Just the moment we're at politically for President Trump and how different this administration is. I mean, he just achieved a Middle East peace deal. He's had the big, beautiful bill that's gone through. You see this massive show of unity. I just saw Josh Hawley, Lindsey Graham, all the senators from across the Republican caucus are there. And it's so different from last time around when you had Mueller in that report that really dragged down the administration. You had career civil servants. I remember reading a Washington Post article about how they wanted to resist the Trump administration in their first term, and they're actually former Obama officials aiding them in that endeavor. You had the Obamacare vote, and we remember the thumbs down, and that didn't get repealed. And this administration is just winning. They're putting up W's every day, and Democrats would be wise to come to the table and partner with them and fix this and work on solutions.
It just sounds so crazy at this point, because they're pushing against some people who voted for President Trump. I mean, we know how many disaffected people who were independents and Democrats voted for the current president. You can look at the numbers and tell the percentages, but you talk to people and they'll tell you.
Happening today, President Trump expected to meet with Senate Republicans as the government shutdown enters day 21, after Senate Democrats blocked a funding bill for the 11th time. Senate Majority Whip John Barrasso joins us now. Senator, what's the message at the lunch today? Do you expect to hear marching orders from the president? Is he going to be listening to what you guys want to do? What do you think?
Well, Republicans are united, and I expect the president to say, stand strong. What we're seeing here are the Democrats practicing the politics of pain, and it's the American people who are suffering the pain. And it's the millions of military members, TSA agents, Border Patrol, people who go to work every day, and they're wondering when will they get their next paycheck. I talked to someone in Wyoming yesterday who's in that category, and they're saying, still got to put food on the table, try to feed the kids. How are we going to do that? The Democrats don't seem to care about any of those Americans. They care more about the people in their left wing who want to provide health care for illegal immigrants paid for by taxpayers rather than pay the men and women in uniform. It's wrong. They're afraid of their liberal base.
So here is Senator Schumer. Believe it or not, he has a different take.
What kind of country do we live in? What kind of party is this Republican Party that is unwilling to solve this problem, which is staring Americans in the face, frightening Americans from one end of the country to the other? And yet Republicans, what are they doing about it? Nothing. They're on vacation. It's unacceptable and morally repugnant.
Wasn't the senator part of a rooftop party that Democrats were having over the weekend?
Yeah, Chuck Schumer is playing a dangerous political game with our country. It's wrong. He's told the press, he said, every day gets better for us. I'm wondering who the us is. It's not the American people. It's not the people who go to work every day and are worried about the families. It's not the people that get on an airplane, the people that are worried about what's happening at the border. It's none about them. This is a political game that was orchestrated by Schumer, organized in his office with the far left base of the party. They had been planning this shutdown for months because Chuck Schumer is afraid of AOC and of his own shadow and of his party. And as the group that nominated Mondami to be the mayor of New York City, that's where he lives. Those are the people. And he's really afraid of his own voters right now, in the fact that he's worried about his own reelection. He ought to be worried about the people of the United States.
Congressman Chip Roy says Republicans should consider nuking the filibuster for funding bills like this and just, you have enough. You have over 50. You just don't have 60. Real quick on that, because I want to get to Israel, too.
No, that's not going to be the case. There aren't the Republicans that would want to support it. The Democrats would love for us to do that. They tried to do it last time because they wanted to add D.C. and Puerto Rico as states with more Democrat senators. They wanted to expand the Supreme Court from 9 to 13, and they wanted to get rid of voter ID. So that's not something that we're going to entertain.
All right, so here is President Trump yesterday. He saw over the weekend that Hamas fighters killed 2 IDF soldiers who were just standing on the line, the yellow line, and they would retort back, killed 14 Palestinians. Here's what Donald Trump said about how Hamas is acting.
We have a peace in the Middle East for the first time ever. We made a deal with Hamas that, they're going to be very good, they're going to behave, they're going to be nice, and if they're not, we're going to go and we're going to eradicate them if we have to. Hamas has been very violent, but they don't have the backing of Iran anymore. They don't have the backing of really anybody anymore. They have to be good. And if they're not good, they'll be eradicated.
I believe Iran's still sending them arms. Now, J.D. Vance goes over there today, the vice president. I also saw pictures of Jared and Steve Woodcock with the hostages. What should the message be, do you hope, today in Israel?
Well, the president is really showing what U.S. President Trump is as a global leader. He has promised and is keeping his promises of peace through strength. 2 weeks ago, nobody would have ever imagined or believed that they could have gotten the hostages out and back, the alive hostages. President Trump delivered. There's now a pathway to peace. There's still a long way to go, but we're seeing peace through strength. I mean, consider what it was like with Joe Biden in the White House, the weakness of wishful thinking. President Trump took decisive action with regard to Iran, knocking out their nuclear capacity. What we're doing is the right thing. Now, there's still the 20-point plan that the president has put in place. There's a long way to go, but I think we're on the right path to a lasting and successful peace in the Middle East, thanks to President Trump.
All right. Thanks, Senator. We'll look forward to making some progress today at lunch. We'll see what happens. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Brian.
Joining us here in Dallas, Texas, is Republican Congressman Roger Williams. Congressman, great to have you here.
Good to see you.
When does this end, this shutdown?
Well, that's a great question. It could end in an hour if Chuck Schumer would go ahead and release his votes to stop this thing. But I think the way we're heading now, we could be here till Thanksgiving.
No interest, no flexibility, no give-in to the Democrats?
No, there's no give-in. We passed a CR on September 20th to keep the government open. The same CR that 8 or 9 times under Biden they had voted for, but now they vote against. We passed that. They need to pass theirs so the government can open. It's all about Chuck Schumer and his political career. And to hold Main Street America and the people of America hostage for that is the wrong thing.
You keep waiting for a couple Democrat senators. It only takes a couple Democrat senators to get to the 60-vote threshold for a couple of those Democrat senators to say it is the best thing for America to reopen the government.
Well, exactly. And when we reopen the government, they help their states, they help their districts. Like I said, Main Street America is hurting. I chair the Small Business Committee. And I can tell you, traveling across the country, people are concerned about if they can stay in business, all because of Schumer holding everybody hostage.
You saw that from CNN talking about the polling on this government shutdown. You've been a part of government shutdowns on both sides of the aisle, voting for and against CRs. What do you think is the way this plays out politically? Because the pressure and who gives into the pressure will largely be determined by the people.
Well, they will, and I think politically it's a disaster for the Democrats. I mean, we haven't paid we may not be able to pay the military October 30th. You got the air traffic controllers. All these things are not getting paid, and people know that it's Chuck Schumer and the Democrats are keeping this from happening.
Speaking of paying federal employees, military, FAA, there is talk that later this week, Senate Majority Leader John Thune will put a bill exclusively to fund federal employees' paychecks. If that happens, that'll mean that you and other House members go back to Washington, D.C. to vote on that small sliced piece of the CR. What will be the response in the House?
Well, it'll be interesting because we've already voted for it. You know, we've already voted to fund the government. We've already voted to pay the military. We did that in the CR. So if they try to pull that out of the CR, that dilutes the CR, and we'll have to see what happens. I mean, we'll go back to vote on it, and I'll have to look at it. But right now, I've already voted for it. I don't want to vote for it twice. And I'm also not interested, too, if once we get that done, of voting for health care for the illegals. We talk about that. CR is clean. CR is what they've supported forever. They need to vote for it.
All right, World Series is now official. You brought it up to me in the green room. You're a big baseball guy, TCU, Major League Baseball. It's Dodgers, it's Blue Jays. Everybody, and I mean everybody, is going to be picking the Dodgers.
Well, I'm picking the Dodgers. I think the Dodgers in 6 because you got Ohtani. I mean, what a great player, right? He's going to throw at least 2 games. And then they got Kershaw from over here, and they got a great pitching staff. So I think the Dodgers in 6, but the Toronto's going to score a run. Springer hit that home run last night, and you got Guerrero who can hit. It's going to be a great World Series. Canada against the United States.
Look at you, still rattling off the stars, paying attention to baseball. I can only imagine that the game that you pay attention to that rivals the World Series is the congressional baseball game, where you're on a hot streak.
We are.
As Republicans.
We've won 6 in a row. We had 44,000 people there this past year.
And now on deck, running for Congress in Texas, you've got Mark Teixeira, 400 home runs in the major leagues. And I asked you who's the best player. I asked you who's the best player on your squad, and you hemmed and hawed and didn't want to offend anybody. If Teixeira wins his seat for Congress, you'll have an easy answer.
Yeah, I'll have an easy answer. I told him he was going to have to try out for the team, but I could guarantee him one thing. He'll be playing opening night.
Okay, Congressman Williams, great to see you over here in Dallas.
Thank you, Will. All right.
With us, Democratic Senator Chris Coons of Delaware, who is on the Appropriations Committee. Senator Coons, great to have you on.
Trace, thanks. Great to be on with you again.
Same lead question, because you had both John Thune coming out saying, listen, there is nothing to negotiate. Open the government and then we'll negotiate. And on the flip side, you had Chuck Schumer saying, we just want to negotiate.
Well, Trace, it's pretty striking that the House of Representatives hasn't come to work for weeks. And what you did just play, Chuck Schumer saying, was we need to sit down and negotiate a way to avoid huge increases in health care for millions of Americans, which kicks in on November 1. I support that. President Trump ran on lowering our costs and making Americans healthier again. And what's going to happen to millions of Americans on the Affordable Care Act exchanges November 1 is that their health insurance rates will go up dramatically. In Delaware, our insurance commissioner has already published rates that say health insurance will cost more than at any point since the last Trump administration. There is a way forward. We could negotiate around this. There's a letter circulating now by 13 House Republicans urging Speaker Johnson to bring them back into session and negotiate to fix this urgent, imminent rise in health care costs that'll impact all Americans.
John Thune was asked about that. He said, look, the House has done its work. You mentioned the House being out. He said the House has already done its work. It is now up to the Senate to do their work. And I guess the question to you would be, why not just vote yes on the continuing resolution, open it up, and then do the negotiating?
Because I have no confidence that if we reopen, there will be negotiations. There is a path forward here where we get a commitment to a path forward to votes on our appropriations bills and to this Affordable Care Act fix. But that's so far not been put on the table. I do think President Trump has a critical role to play here. Before he leaves our country for a week, traveling in the Indo-Pacific, I hope that he will sit down with Minority Leader Schumer and with Minority Leader Jeffries. He can break this impasse. He has said in the past that he doesn't want Americans to see huge increases in their health insurance costs. No. If he says, let's do this and work out a deal, I'm confident it can happen. If he doesn't, then we're going to have more and more Delawareans calling me saying they're concerned their health care costs are skyrocketing.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned President Trump there, because the numbers guy over at CNN said this shutdown is not hurting President Trump's numbers at all. In fact, it's improving the numbers. Watch this.
This shutdown hasn't eaten into Donald Trump's support at all. His net approval rating is actually up a point in terms of his popular support. So the bottom line is this: the first shutdown during Trump's first term, 2018-2019, was hurting Donald Trump. This one is not hurting him at all. There's no real reason Donald Trump might say, at least when it comes to popular support, I want to get out of this shutdown.
Kind of a weird dichotomy, right? Because you have Trump's numbers going up because of the shutdown, and yet you have a Reuters poll coming out and saying that 50% blame Republicans. What's your takeaway?
Right. So, Trace, my takeaway is that all of us should be working together to try and avoid needless pain to millions of Americans. Longer emergency room waits, an inability to get preventive care from physicians. I've heard from doctors, from hospital leaders in Delaware who are saying that they are bracing for impact. The president should be worried less about who's getting the blame and who's getting the credit, and more about working with us to find a path forward to avoid skyrocketing health insurance costs. In most states like mine, those letters go out November 1. That's when my citizens, the folks from Delaware, will find out how much their health costs go up. And I think there's going to be a big push on us to fix it then. My concern is it'll be too late.
Right.
Instead of spending time bailing out the Argentine government to the tune of $40 billion, instead of spending time on building a new gold-plated ballroom at the White House, I wish our president were spending time negotiating over how to avoid these big increases in costs.
You say, Senator, that you've heard from your doctors and they're telling you the rising costs. We just heard from a doctor who also happens to be in the Senate, Bill Cassidy, who says your plan is going to drive costs up because you want to give health benefits to illegal immigrants, which, by the way, is true in a lot of cases.
That is not at all true. And as I know Dr. Cassidy, Senator Cassidy, and I know he knows this, it is not legal to be enrolled in the Affordable Care Act, Medicare, or Medicaid unless you're in the United States legally. There is no path here for giving health care to illegal aliens. That is not a core part of the agenda of the Democratic Party.
We are right now
Trace,
in California, Senator.
Tell me what that path is.
The path is that in California, they have been giving health care to illegal immigrants, and they've been asking the federal government to fund a portion of that money.
Using state money.
And the federal government is wanting to pull. No, they're not using state money. They're using federal and state money.
Trace,
and they're asking for the federal government to give more money.
It is against the law. It's in the statute. It is against the law to enroll in the Affordable Care Act, Medicare, or Medicaid.
They're not enrolled
if you are here illegally.
They're giving benefits, medical benefits, to illegal immigrants, and they are asking the federal government to fund a portion of those benefits.
Okay. Trace, in my state of Delaware, that is not happening, and nationally, it is not legal to enroll people in Medicare, Medicaid, or the Affordable Care Act who are not here legally.
Senator, thank you for your time. We appreciate it. Best of luck.
Thank you, Trace.
We hope this thing gets worked out.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.